I had always believed that wealth created a bubble around people, a world so isolated that no one could penetrate it unless invited. But that evening shattered every expectation I had. I was in my office, high above the city in my glass-walled penthouse, reviewing documents that dictated millions, when a sound at the door drew my attention. At first, I thought it was a mistake, an employee, perhaps, or a delivery. But when I looked up, I saw her, a woman I had never seen before. She was dressed in rags, her hair tangled, her eyes carrying a strange clarity, as if she could see through the walls of my carefully constructed life. I froze. No one ever just walked in. No one. She didn't hesitate, didn't explain herself. She simply entered, her presence somehow both intrusive and compelling. I wanted to call security, to demand she leave, but something in the way she moved, the way her gaze held mine, stopped me. There was urgency in her step, a purpose that no ordinary intruder would possess. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "You don't know me, but you need to hear this." I laughed nervously, trying to hide my unease behind the walls of my confidence. "And why should I listen to a stranger?" I asked. Her eyes didn't waver. "Because what I'm about to tell you, it changes everything. And no one else will believe you until it's too late." A chill ran down my spine. I had faced boardroom betrayals, corporate espionage, and secrets that could ruin empires. Yet nothing had prepared me for the feeling that the very air in my office had shifted, that this woman, this unknown, homeless stranger, held the key to a truth I had never imagined. I wanted to dismiss her, to push her out into the cold night, but I couldn't. Something in her presence demanded attention, demanded belief. She took a deep breath, and in that moment, I realized this was no ordinary interruption. This was a revelation, a confrontation with a secret so hidden, it had eluded even me. And then, she began to speak. She paused for a moment, her eyes scanning the room as if measuring the gravity of what she was about to reveal. I felt my chest tighten, the familiar pulse of control I had always relied on began to falter. This stranger, someone who should have no power over me, was commanding my full attention with a single look. "You think you know everything about your life," she began, her voice calm but insistent. "The people you trust, the deals you make, the empire you've built, it's all built on a foundation that isn't as solid as you believe." I frowned, trying to mask the unease curling in my stomach. "And what exactly are you implying?" I asked, though part of me already feared the answer. She stepped closer, her presence almost tangible, and whispered words that froze me in place. "There's someone very close to you, someone you consider loyal, who has been manipulating your life from the shadows. What you see as success is partially a construction of lies. And if you continue to ignore this, it will destroy everything you've built." A million thoughts collided in my mind at once. Betrayal, corporate espionage, family secrets. The world I had mastered so carefully suddenly seemed like a fragile facade, one gust of truth away from collapse. My pulse raced, yet a strange curiosity anchored me in place. Who was she talking about? Who dared to hide so much from me? She leaned against the edge of my desk, unafraid, almost intimate in her intrusion. "I know you won't believe me at first. That's natural. But you will see. Soon, the pieces will fall into place, and what you thought was reality will be completely unrecognizable." I wanted to demand her explanation, to drag answers out of her by force, but something in her tone stopped me. There was no malice, no intention to manipulate, only a terrifying clarity, as if she had witnessed the hidden currents of my life and was speaking only the truth. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked, my voice low, tinged with a mix of skepticism and fear. She hesitated, then smiled faintly, a knowing, almost sad smile. "Because if I don't, it will be too late. You've lived your life thinking you are untouchable, but the truth doesn't care about wealth, power, or reputation. It exists regardless, and it has been waiting for you to face it." Her words sank into me like icy water, shocking me into awareness. All my years of control, all my calculated moves, all my security measures, it all felt suddenly fragile, laughably insufficient against a truth I had never considered. I realized then that this stranger, this homeless, unassuming woman, was not here by accident. She had come to expose a hidden reality, to confront me with a secret that not only threatened my empire, but the very identity I had built around it. And in that moment, I understood, my life, as I had known it, was about to unravel. For a moment, I simply stared at her, my mind racing faster than it ever had before. Every instinct screamed for me to regain control, to dismiss her as a delusional intruder, but something in her eyes, something in the conviction behind her words, made it impossible. She knew things that no outsider could possibly know. And the terrifying part was, I couldn't ignore it. "You expect me to just sit here and believe you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the whirlwind inside me. You walk into my office, uninvited, and claim there's some grand conspiracy around me? Who are you, really? She didn't flinch. I am someone who has been watching, waiting, and surviving. I know things that even your closest advisors don't. Secrets you didn't even realize were hidden from you. And I am here because someone has been manipulating your life, someone you trust completely. I cannot say more yet, not until you understand that the danger is closer than you think. A chill ran down my spine. I had always thought I was untouchable. Money, influence, reputation, they were shields that nothing could pierce. Yet now, the walls I had built around myself seemed paper thin. And this woman, homeless, unnoticed by the world until this very moment, had walked straight through them. Why me? I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper. Why tell me at all? Why not just let it happen? Her gaze softened, almost human in its vulnerability. Because someone has to stop it. Someone has to know before it's too late. And that someone is you. You may have power, but you also have a responsibility, and time is running out. I felt a surge of anger mixed with disbelief. How dare she come into my life, challenge everything I believed about control, power, and trust? And yet, deep down, I knew she was right. Something had been off. Small inconsistencies I had ignored, whispers I had brushed aside, they suddenly took on a new, dangerous significance. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. The person behind this, they are closer than you think. Every move you make has been observed. Every deal you celebrate has been influenced. And the truth, when it comes out, will shock everyone you know. I felt my hands clench around the edge of my desk. My life, the empire I had painstakingly built, the carefully constructed illusions of loyalty and success, it all felt precarious, teetering on the edge of a revelation I wasn't ready for. And then, in a voice that was almost a whisper, she said something that made my blood run cold. You may have millions, but that doesn't mean you are safe. The secret I carry, it will change everything. And you have only one chance to confront it before it's too late. For the first time in years, I felt powerless. Not physically, not financially, but fundamentally, emotionally, mentally, in a way that no boardroom negotiation or contract clause could protect me from. I realized that my life, my empire, and everything I believed about loyalty and trust was about to be shattered, and the key to survival lay in listening to this stranger who, by all appearances, should have had no influence over me. Her words hung in the air, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same. The clock was ticking, the stakes were higher than I could comprehend, and the secrets that had been buried so carefully were now clawing their way into the light. I had a choice: ignore her and risk losing everything, or follow her guidance into a truth I wasn't sure I was ready to face. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in my life, I felt the exhilarating and terrifying weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. I sat there, frozen, staring at her as the enormity of her words settled over me like a storm. Everything I had built, every carefully constructed relationship, every deal, every alliance, it suddenly seemed fragile, as if the ground beneath me could vanish at any moment. I had always thought I was untouchable, yet here was a stranger, ragged and unknown, holding the power to unravel my life with nothing more than words. She stepped closer, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity I had never experienced. You need to understand, she said, this isn't speculation or rumor. I have evidence, proof of actions taken in the shadows. I know who is manipulating your life, and I know how deep it goes. If you act now, you might have a chance to reclaim control. If you hesitate, you risk losing everything. My mind raced. The thought that someone so close could betray me was unbearable, yet the clarity in her voice left no room for doubt. Show me, I demanded, my hand trembling slightly. Without a word, she reached into her tattered bag and pulled out a small, weathered envelope. It was heavy with documents, photographs, and handwritten notes, each one meticulously detailing events I had long assumed were private, actions I had believed were my own. My heart pounded as I flipped through them, every page revealing a hidden hand that had been guiding, twisting, and undermining my life without my knowledge. And then I saw it, the truth I had never imagined. The person behind it all was not an enemy, not a rival, not some distant adversary. It was someone I had trusted implicitly, someone whose loyalty I had never questioned, someone whose smile, handshake, and carefully measured words had masked a calculating agenda that had shaped my empire from within. I felt a surge of anger, disbelief, and betrayal crash over me. My mind raced back through years of interactions, searching for signs I had missed, clues I had ignored. Every success now felt tainted, every ally suspect, every decision vulnerable. The foundation of my life had been compromised, and I had been blind to it all. The woman watched silently, her expression calm yet unwavering. I know this is hard to accept, she said. Most people would run, deny it, or retaliate blindly, but you have a choice. You can confront this with precision, strategy, and clarity, or you can let it destroy you from the inside out. I clenched my fists, feeling a cold fury ignite within me. I had always believed in control, in power, in mastery over my environment. Yet now I realized that control was an illusion. True power, I thought, was recognizing the threat, understanding it, and acting decisively. And if anyone could guide me through this revelation, it was this stranger, this homeless, ragged woman who had walked into my life and shattered everything I thought I knew. She handed me a single photograph, one that showed my trusted associate in a clandestine meeting, exchanging information with someone I had assumed was loyal to me. The evidence was irrefutable. I felt the ground tilt beneath my feet, and for the first time in my life, I understood the vulnerability of human trust. Now, she said, her voice low and firm, decide. Do you confront them openly, or do you wait and watch, gathering more proof before acting? Time is limited. Every moment you hesitate gives them an advantage. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every decision I had ever made crashing down on me. The enormity of what lay ahead was staggering, but beneath the fear was a spark I hadn't felt in years, a drive to reclaim control, to expose the truth, and to ensure that the web of lies could never threaten me again. And so I nodded, silently acknowledging that my life, my empire, and my very understanding of loyalty had changed forever. The stranger had revealed the secret that no one imagined, and now it was my responsibility to face it, navigate it, and survive it. The stakes had never been higher, and for the first time, I truly understood the price of ignorance, trust, and betrayal. The days that followed were a blur of calculation, observation, and tension. I couldn't trust anyone, not fully, not yet. Every handshake, every conversation, every meeting became a potential trap. Yet beneath the paranoia, there was a purpose, a relentless drive fueled by the knowledge the homeless woman had given me. I had glimpsed the truth, and there was no turning back. I began my investigation cautiously, methodically, retracing every interaction I had ever had with the person I once trusted implicitly. Emails, phone records, financial transactions, everything was scrutinized. Each discovery was more damning than the last. The betrayal was far deeper and more intricate than I could have imagined. The person I relied on to manage crucial aspects of my empire had been manipulating outcomes, misdirecting investments, and quietly aligning my business with hidden agendas. The web of deceit was vast, a spider's web intricately spun to ensnare me without my knowledge. And yet, despite the anger, a strange clarity emerged. For the first time, I saw not just the deception but the vulnerabilities in my own judgment. My trust had been absolute, my confidence unchallenged, and that complacency had allowed this betrayal to grow unchecked. I realized that power without vigilance is fragile, and that wealth, influence, and intelligence could be weaponized against oneself when one overlooks human complexity. The homeless woman became an unlikely ally. She didn't answer questions directly, she only guided me subtly, pushing me to observe, to connect dots, and to anticipate moves that others thought invisible. She had no allegiance to me, yet she had insight and intuition honed by survival. And I began to understand that survival, true survival, required more than money or influence. It required perception, patience, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. The first confrontation came unexpectedly. I invited the person who had betrayed me into my office under the guise of a routine discussion. I watched their expressions, the slight hesitation in their movements, the carefully measured tone of their voice. I had studied them 4 days, memorized their habits, anticipated their defenses. But even with all that preparation, nothing could shield me from the rush of satisfaction and shock when they realized I already knew everything. Why? I asked, my voice low but controlled. Why betray me, manipulate my life, undermine everything I've built? Their face paled, but they quickly masked fear with indignation. You'll never understand, they said, but I could see the cracks, the tiny moments where truth slipped through their carefully constructed facade. I didn't reply immediately. I let silence hang in the room, thick and suffocating. Every second amplified the gravity of their actions, the betrayal that had festered in the shadows for years. And then I began to lay out the evidence, the emails, the transactions, the secret meetings. I watched as the realization dawned, the mask of confidence crumbling piece by piece. But the revelations didn't stop there. As I pressed further, uncovering layers upon layers of manipulation, I discovered alliances I had never imagined, hidden motives, and secrets that connected not just to my business but to my personal life. Friends, acquaintances, even family members had been unwittingly entangled in a web of deceit. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering, and the realization hit me like a tidal wave. My entire life had been touched by secrets I had never known, and yet now, armed with knowledge and strategy, I had the power to reshape it entirely. The homeless woman remained in the background, silent yet present. Her insight had set this chain in motion, but it was I who had to navigate the minefield of betrayal, deception, and human frailty. Every decision mattered, every move was critical. And yet, in the chaos, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: control, not the illusion of control, but the raw, undeniable force of understanding the truth and acting decisively on it. By the end of that first week of confrontation, I had not only exposed the traitor but also begun reclaiming influence over the aspects of my life that had been manipulated. The revelations were painful, the confrontations exhausting, but each step reinforced a truth I had only begun to grasp: wealth, power, and reputation are fragile. Trust is both a weapon and a vulnerability, and knowledge, the kind that pierces the veil of deception, is the most dangerous and liberating force of all. As I stood in my office late that night, looking down at the city sprawl below, I realized that the homeless woman had given me more than insight. She had given me a chance to see the truth, to confront it, and to emerge stronger. The secret that no one imagined had been revealed, and I understood, for the first time in my life, that the real battle was never about money or power. It was about seeing clearly, understanding deeply, and acting without hesitation in a world where deceit lurks in every corner. The weeks that followed were a crucible, testing every facet of my patience, intellect, and resilience. I realized that uncovering a secret was only the beginning. Acting on it, managing the fallout, and rebuilding trust, or deciding who deserved it, was the true challenge. Every relationship, every alliance, every decision became a tightrope walk between revelation and consequence. The betrayal I had uncovered wasn't limited to a single act. It was systemic, entwined with years of hidden agendas and manipulations. Friends I had assumed were loyal, employees I had trusted implicitly, even family members who I thought shared my values, they were all touched in some way by the shadows that had been cast over my life. And yet, armed with the knowledge I now possessed, I began to unravel these webs carefully, strategically, ensuring that truth became my weapon without allowing it to destroy what I valued most. The homeless woman remained an enigmatic presence throughout it all. She never demanded credit, never asked for reward. Her role was subtle, guiding me to see what I could not and urging me to trust my instincts. I often wondered how someone so marginalized, so overlooked by society, could wield such power simply by perceiving the world with clarity. Her presence reminded me that wisdom and insight do not come from wealth, status, or influence. They come from understanding human nature and surviving its brutal realities. As I confronted each person involved, the reactions varied wildly. Some pleaded ignorance, claiming they had been coerced or manipulated themselves. Others tried to deflect blame, insisting that my assumptions were overblown. Yet the evidence was overwhelming, and the tide of truth was unstoppable. I realized that deception is fragile when exposed to unwavering observation and relentless questioning. People who once seemed invincible crumbled under scrutiny, revealing their hidden motivations, weaknesses, and fears. But it wasn't just about uncovering treachery, it was also about reclaiming my life. I had to redefine who I trusted, how I conducted business, and even how I perceived my own judgment. The process was exhausting, mentally and emotionally, but with each revelation, I felt a strange liberation. The empire I had thought was my own was partially reconstructed by the hands of others, but now, with clarity, I could reclaim it, rebuild it, and fortify it against future deception. And then there was the personal cost. The secret I uncovered affected not only professional ties but personal relationships as well. People I had loved and relied upon were implicated, either directly or indirectly. I had to make difficult choices: distance, confrontation, or forgiveness, but always with careful calculation. Each decision carried weight, and the consequences rippled far beyond my immediate perception. I learned, painfully, that truth is not gentle, it demands reckoning, and it forces you to confront uncomfortable realities about those you thought you knew best. Yet in the midst of this chaos, I discovered something extraordinary about myself. The fear and uncertainty that initially gripped me transformed into strategic clarity. I became more observant, more cautious, but also more confident in my ability to navigate human complexity. I realized that power without perception is meaningless, and wealth without discernment can be dangerously fragile. More importantly, I learned that vulnerability is not weakness, it is the threshold through which insight, growth, and strength enter. The homeless woman eventually disappeared, as suddenly as she had appeared. No farewell, no explanation, just absence. And yet, her influence lingered. I understood that she had not only revealed the secret but also taught me how to see the world differently through a lens of awareness, strategy, and cautious empathy. She had reminded me that the most powerful tools in life are not money, influence, or fear, but understanding, foresight, and the courage to confront truths others wish to hide. Months later, standing in the same office where my life had begun to unravel, I reflected on how far I had come. The empire was intact, stronger, and more resilient than before, but the lessons extended far beyond the business. I had learned to perceive motives behind every smile, every gesture, every word. I had learned that secrets can thrive anywhere, even in lives that appear flawless. And most importantly, I had learned that survival, true survival, requires vigilance, humility, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths without hesitation. The secret that no one imagined had changed everything, but in the end, it had also given me something I had never anticipated: clarity. I saw the fragility of trust, the power of perception, and the strength that comes from embracing reality, however uncomfortable. And though the homeless woman was gone, her impact remained embedded in the way I thought, acted, and navigated the intricate, unpredictable web of human life. Life would never be the same again. I was no longer just a millionaire insulated by wealth. I was a person forged by revelation, betrayal, and insight. And in that transformation, I discovered something invaluable: the courage to face truth, the wisdom to act decisively, and the awareness that even the most hidden secrets can be confronted and survived if one has the clarity to see them coming. Years passed, yet the memory of that night remained vivid, etched into my mind like a scar I both resented and cherished. The revelation, the secret no one imagined, had not only reshaped my empire but had fundamentally altered who I was. The betrayal I had uncovered was not merely an isolated incident, it had been a lesson, brutal and unrelenting, about trust, perception, and the fragility of human relationships. And I had emerged on the other side changed in ways that wealth alone could never produce. The empire I had built, once vulnerable to manipulation, was now fortified, not merely with financial acumen or legal safeguards, but with awareness, foresight, and an understanding of human motives that I had never possessed before. I had learned to read between the lines, to detect subtle shifts in tone, posture, and intention. I became a master not only of business strategy but of psychological insight, capable of anticipating deception before it even surfaced. Yet with this power came a humbling realization: knowledge is double-edged. The more you understand, the more you see how easily everything can unravel, and the more responsibility you bear to act wisely. The homeless woman, whose sudden appearance had catalyzed this transformation, remained a ghost in my memory. I never saw her again, yet her presence lingered in the lessons she imparted. She had revealed that even the most marginalized and overlooked individuals can carry insight more potent than wealth, status, or authority. She had reminded me that survival and true influence requires perception, courage, and the humility to acknowledge truths you would rather ignore. Her disappearance was enigmatic, but I realized that she had never needed recognition. Her role had been to awaken awareness, and in that, she had succeeded beyond measure. Emotionally, the experience reshaped me. I had once believed that power and wealth insulated me from vulnerability, but I now understood that true vulnerability is not exposed to material loss, it is exposed to truth. Confronting betrayal, uncovering hidden agendas, and facing uncomfortable realities stripped away illusions and forced me to engage with life in its raw, unfiltered form. The fear I had once felt transformed into vigilance, the anger became clarity, the pain became strategy. I had not merely survived the revelation, I had been refined by it. Relationships, too, were forever altered. Some bonds were irreparably broken, trust shattered beyond repair. Others were strengthened by honesty, accountability, and mutual understanding. I learned to measure loyalty not by appearances or words but by actions sustained under pressure. Friendships, partnerships, and even familial ties took on new significance, grounded not in convenience or expectation, but in integrity and discernment. The social fabric I had navigated for years was rewoven with sharper awareness, and in that weaving, I discovered the resilience to face future uncertainty with confidence. And yet, amid the strategic victories and reconstructed alliances, there was a subtler, more profound transformation. I had learned humility, not the shallow humility of appearances, but the deep humility that comes from recognizing the limits of one's knowledge and control. I had been forced to confront the uncomfortable reality that even my best laid plans could be undermined by unseen forces, and that no amount of wealth could shield me from deception. But in acknowledging this, I had gained something priceless: clarity of vision, sharpened judgment, and the ability to navigate life with both caution and courage. Even the empire itself, now stronger than ever, bore the imprint of these lessons. Decisions were made not only with financial calculation but with ethical foresight, awareness of human motives, and a commitment to resilience. Opportunities that once seemed solely profitable were now weighed against potential vulnerabilities, alliances were cultivated with care, and risks were calculated with a depth of insight born from personal experience rather than theory. The hidden structures of influence, manipulation, and trust were no longer threats, they were instruments I could observe, anticipate, and, when necessary, redirect. Looking back on that night, I realized that the homeless woman had given me more than knowledge or warning. She had given me the tools to transform my life entirely. The secret she revealed was not just a threat, it was a catalyst. It forced me to confront myself, my empire, and the people around me with brutal honesty. It taught me that wealth is meaningless without discernment, influence is fragile without insight, and survival is impossible without courage. Now, years later, I navigate the world differently. Every interaction carries weight, every decision is informed by a careful understanding of motive, and every alliance is tempered by experience. The city below my penthouse has not changed, but I have. I am no longer merely a millionaire insulated by fortune. I am a person forged by revelation, tempered by betrayal, and sharpened by insight. I carry the lessons of that night in every choice, every relationship, and every venture I undertake. And while the homeless woman vanished as mysteriously as she appeared, her impact endures. She reminded me that power and wealth are fragile, secrets are perilous, and insight, true insight, can come from the most unexpected places. The secret that no one imagined changed my life forever, but in that change, I discovered the ultimate truth: the world is not ruled by fortune alone, but by the clarity, courage, and wisdom to confront what lies hidden in the shadows. In the end, I emerged not just intact, but transformed. The empire survived, yes, but I, too, survived, stronger, wiser, and more aware of the delicate, dangerous, and extraordinary complexity of life itself. And in that survival, I found a power greater than wealth, greater than influence, and greater than fear: the power of seeing clearly, acting decisively, and knowing that even the darkest secrets can be faced and conquered if one has the courage to look.